worthy of study and which is going on in our brains on a different level than, or in another way he often put it, in a different module from where meaning, that is semantics, is taking place. And so his idea was that if you look at something like colorless green ideas sleep furiously, it's a morphological matter. The things from our earlier lectures that Lee is being linked to furious, and you have this new word furiously. So that's down here. Then you've got meaning, and so the fact that sleeping and furiously would never be mapped together because furiously implies a deliberation and probably being awake that is incompatible with sleeping. That's on the semantic level. But as far as Chomsky was concerned, there's something in between, and that syntax, which could be called a kind of mezzanine. And that's what he was interested in. So the basic idea was that this is innate. He called it universal grammar. The idea is that any human being has it. So it's not that a Turk is born with some innate ability to understand Turkish, but that all human beings are born with this ability. Because, of course, children of any extraction learn the language that they're raised with, and will do it quickly. One of Chomsky's crucial insights was that children do not make all of the mistakes that you would expect them to make. This is another one of those things where I can't imagine why someone would have thought of this, but the fact of the matter is that he is right. So, for example, let's take an ordinary sentence like, the man is tall. Now, we all know that to make it into a question, what we would do is say, is the man tall? So, we said, well, what's the rule? How do you make something into a question in English? Well, in this case, it seems that you take the auxiliary and the subject, the is and the man, and you switch places. And so it is the man tall. Now, that's easy. But if you take a slightly different sentence, the man who is tall is sad. That's a simple sentence. Now, if you make that into a question, we know instantly that you say, is the man who is tall sad? Okay. But the fact of the matter is that when we did that, we did not apply that rule that we came up with of the subject and the auxiliary. Or at least, it's not clear exactly how we applied that rule because there are two is's in that sentence. Now, we could take the correct is, the one that we know is the correct is, and we say, is the man who is tall sad? But that's the second is. Now, somehow we just knew to do that. Now, if we're going to go by our first rule, i.e., is the man sad, then you'd think that somebody might think, well, suppose we just take the first aux and reverse it with the subject. Now, what's interesting is that no child makes that mistake. You'd think that children, if it's just a matter of listening for the order where it's coming, would think, well, okay, if you are going to make something into a question, then you take the subject and you take the aux that follows it and you reverse the order. But in the case of the man who is tall is sad, that would mean that you would get, is the man who tall is sad. And that's not a sentence at all. So we know that children make mistakes. And so, for example, it's very common for a child to go through a phase where they're saying feets instead of feet. When I was little, I remember going through a phase where instead of saying have, I would say gots. And I insisted that that was correct. And my mother kept getting on me about it. I didn't grow up in a home where that was said. I just got it from somewhere. I got this book in my hand. My mother would say, that is not the way you use the word got. And I had these vocabulary cards, and I remember the word got was on one of the cards. And I said, yes, there is such a word, got. And we would fight over it. Kids are very insistent about the mistakes they make. But no child says, is the man who tall is sad? That doesn't happen. And so why is it that a child never does anything like that? If the child is just listening for word order, then you think that that would happen.